Fast forward to the Giants' first Super Bowl run a few years ago. How have you seen things change just from then to the immediacy of how your career and how sports journalism has changed?
During the Giants run, if I'm not mistaken, we had just started blogging. My blog might have been maybe a year old, maybe not even that much. It might have started that summer. I'd have to look back. But we were still in the infancy of blogging. So there was an immediacy that had started to build, but not to the extent that it is now. I would go to practices back in those days, as if that was a long time ago, and if I didn't blog something for an hour or so, it didn't matter. There were probably 5, 6 Giants writers. None of us, we'd have lunch before we went back and blogged. If a guy got hurt in a practice or in a game, there was, we'd get to it at some point. People would know about it that day and long before the paper, but it wasn't an emergency. Now, we're in an era that if I'm on the phone with you right now and news breaks, I'll go over to my computer while I'm talking to you, and my job is to report it. And it's via Twitter or social media immediately. There's no lag time anymore, which is, a heck of a lot different than it was when I first started. And it's really a ton different than it was during the first Super Bowl run.
Let me rephrase that. Has it made your job easier, or are you finding it you having to really sharpen your proverbial pencil to be more accurate?
It's a mixed bag. It's made it easier in this respect. Back when I started, again in the dark ages, I used to wake up in the morning, run out to the store, get every newspaper, read them all, and being a young competitive tabloid writer, I'd have a pit in my stomach worrying about what the New York Post might have that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in the world that I didn't know that day. Because when you're covering the NFL, even just focus on covering one team, there's 53 players, 53 agents, Lord knows how many coaches, players they might be interested in, which could be, hundreds around the league. You can't be looking in every direction. So there's always the possibility that something would happen that you'd have no idea. And if it was in the paper, it would be like it would be sitting there taunting you there's nothing you could do about it until the next day. And your boss would know, and you would feel like everybody would know. So it was a little agonizing. Now, that doesn't happen, or almost never, I should say, and I should knock on wood. Now, if news breaks, people report it on Twitter. People report it on blogs. I will know almost certainly within the hour, even if I'm not standing at my computer or answering my phone, I'm checking regularly. So I'll know, and I can play catch up very quickly. I can, put something on the blog. I could get something in the paper, tweet it. It all counts. So it's eliminated the misses. There's almost, you get scoops now. They don't last a day. They last 10 minutes until everybody else is on the same page. So in that respect, it's easier. It's harder because there is a lot of crap on social media. We're forced to chase every rumor because most readers and fans, I'd like to think they understand that the newspaper reporters are credible sources compared to a fan doing a blog in his basement. But there are some people who can't distinguish that, and they just say, I read somewhere that this is going to happen, and for all they know, it's a 12-year-old boy that was just posting his own blog. They don't know. They just know what they read on the internet. And you have to chase those things and find out if there's any truth, and be careful of what you parrot by retweeting or linking or whatever. And the other thing that's made it difficult is I'm never off. I'm not kidding about having to check Twitter and blogs every hour. Sometimes during the busy seasons, I'm checking them every 10 minutes, and there's not a dinner that goes by that I'm not sneaking my iPhone out to look at what's going on to make sure I'm not missing anything. Because nowadays, if you're an hour behind, you might as well be a week behind. You just look ridiculous.
Is there a lot more sharing now between your colleagues? I mean, I noticed, especially obviously being a Giants fan, I follow all the beat writers. It seems like you guys share a lot of info in the sense of tweets and you converse back and forth. I know, when I was growing up, it was, up the Big Bad New York Post has this writer and the Daily News has this writer, and there's, you always feel like there's competition. Is that still there, or is there a lot more? Do you feel there's a lot more sharing and camaraderie?
I guess probably depends on the beat. I don't know that we share things necessarily. We talk. The Giants writers are the ones that I work with. I work with them more than I work with Daily News writers, but I see them every day.
Mm-hmm.
They're my friends. We'll converse back and forth. I'm not sharing sources with them. If I have information that I don't think they have, I'm certainly not giving it to them. The interaction you see on Twitter, I retweet something that, somebody beats me to something or I didn't know it. I'll give them credit, but I would have done that in the press room 15 years ago. I would have said, nice job, you got this story. Mm-hmm. Or I would have had to write, as Newsday reported, if I didn't have it. Mm-hmm. So now you're seeing it on Twitter, and you're seeing that we're not, we don't hate each other. We're friends. Mm-hmm. I think on some beats it's probably a lot different. I've heard stories of some other beats where the writers don't get along and, there's no friendly interaction at all. I've never really understood that because, we're competitive and I'd like to beat them, but this isn't the end of the world. These are all people. I don't know why I have to be mean to, the guy at the New York Post. I like Paul Schwartz. We're friends. We've been friends for, almost 20 years now. So, I'm not going to... But I guess it's probably not the case on every beat. There's probably a lot more intense competition than we have on the Giants. We're still competitive. We're just not nasty about it.
Gotcha. Hey, let me ask you as well, as far as how social media has changed in covering the team. It's now you have players that with their own accounts. Obviously, Pat Hanlon's an active tweeter. He's very passionate about the Giants. How has that helped or hindered you covering a team in any way?
Well, it's helped because it's more access to the people you need access to. Mm-hmm. If a player, I find for the most part, player Twitter accounts and even PR Twitter accounts to be uninformative, and I don't know why fans will. I guess fans like the interaction, but I don't see. Sometimes these guys are tweeting absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. But for me, a lot of Giants players who signed contracts this offseason took a picture or had somebody take a picture of them signing their contract and tweet it out, just signed my contract. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, now I can see that. I can read it. We're all getting it at the same time because we're all following Steve Weatherford when he signed his contract. So now I don't have to wait by my phone and try to call 19 people and say, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? I know it's done. Sometimes the player doesn't want, he has an injury, he doesn't want to talk to the press, and he sends out via Twitter a comment. Okay, well, that's his statement. I can use that. Mm-hmm. The Giants making an announcement on Twitter. We signed this player. That helps. It's just more access for everything. They don't, for the most part, and people say, well, they're breaking your news. Well, a lot of the stuff that they're breaking is stuff that they would be giving to all of us at the same time anyway. The Giants announced the Giants-Cowboys opener was not something anybody was going to get ahead of someone else. They were going to announce it all at the same time. So, now we just get it in a different form.
Playoffs. And obviously it's something where it seemed like all of the writers are kind of aggregated into one spot. Can you tell me a little bit about Sulia and how it's helped you as a writer, or how it's helped you get your name and your work out farther than you normally would beyond the Giants?
Sulia is really interesting because, and I'm still learning a little bit about it. They've just started this, and the plan behind it, I guess as they explained it to me, is if you are looking for, if there's an event on Twitter, let's take it outside of sports. Let's say you want to read something about. Well, their big one was the revolutions in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. If I were to say, I'd like to follow this real time, I have no idea who to follow. I would probably find CNN's Twitter account, but I don't know if there are other sources out there that are considered experts on this field. They're trying to streamline that process for everybody to say, instead of going on there, if you're a Giants fan, you want to find all the Giants writers. Maybe it might be hard to do it. Maybe you don't know my name, or you certainly might not know my blog, or my Twitter name is the Blue Screen.
Mm-hmm.
You might be looking for the word Giants, and that might not help you. So it could be maddening for people trying to find all the Giants experts. So they create a Giants page and pick out the experts and link them and say these are the people that you should be following. You don't have to go searching on Twitter. You just come to our Giants page and we've got them all. I don't understand, how that's marketable or profitable or anything. I just think the concept is kind of interesting. And from my perspective and from the Daily News perspective, if you're going to have a page somewhere of the top Giants experts, we want to be a part of it. And if there are people out there, and from what I understand, it might be hundreds of thousands of people for them, who they're not looking on Twitter for me, they're looking on Sulia for Giants experts, well, that's X number more viewers that I have that I might be able to have link back to my stories. So it's sort of all like just getting more exposure and broadening your brand a little bit.
So basically it's a win-win for you. It's a win-win for the Daily News. It's marketing and it's exposure.
Exactly. And the only losing part of it, which I don't even consider losing, is for a lot of these Sulia posts you're seeing have links on them. And, people will complain. Actually, I shouldn't say. I've been doing that since November. I probably had less than 10 complaints. But some people will complain that, well, I don't want to. If I'm on Twitter, I don't want to click a link to finish the thought, to read the rest of the quote or whatever. What I explain to people is, it's basically for them, it's the same as if what's the service, Twit Longer.
Mm-hmm.
If you go over 140 characters, you go on to Twit Longer, and it gives you the rest of the thought. So that's not a big deal. And some of these things are things I would not be able to tweet otherwise. One of the most popular Sulia posts I have are the post-game quotes. Well, normally, I would save all my post-game quotes for the blogs or the stories, and I couldn't get them all in. Now I have this avenue where because Sulia lets you go for 500 characters, I can say, here's what Eli Manning said about this game. And I'm not using it in my story. I'm not using it on my blog. I can't fit it into Twitter, but I can give you the whole thing on Sulia. It's like an extra bonus thing for you.
Mm-hmm. And
some people actually like that. They get to read a little more than they would have otherwise.
My last question for you is based strictly Giants, and to be honest with you, it's got to feel pretty good as a writer to cover a two-time Super Bowl champion team, especially with one that there's been so much written about Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning, and obviously you wrote a book on Eli Manning, which I'll put a link to on this blog post as well. It has to be such a thrill to be able to at the end of the day, seeing a season culminate with a championship and you're covering the team. And I know you try to be, obviously objective, but it still has to be pretty thrilling.
It is. It's crazy. It's probably not something I would want to do every year because it takes a toll. Mm-hmm. I worked over 50 consecutive days during the playoff run without a day off. Most of those days were 15 and 16 hours. And, I prefer, if I got a couple of days off, I prefer some time with my family. And, that's the downside of it, I guess. But the upside is, what I tell everyone is that I didn't get into this business because I thought it would be cool to cover an 8-18. I didn't get in this business because I thought, wow, watching Giants-Bengals on a Saturday night or Sunday afternoon in November is a thrill. I got in this business because of the big game. They're the draw. That's the excitement. And as exhausting as it is, it's thrilling to be a part of. You want to be able to, not that we're a part of it, you want to be a part of the coverage. You want to be involved, and you do get a little invested. You don't necessarily root, but I work with the Giants players more than I work with people at the Daily News. I get to know them. I get to know the coaches. We're human beings. There's people in that room that I like and respect, and you do kind of get invested. You feel like you're on this wild ride, and it's at the end there's a nice payoff. It's much more enjoyable than if they're knocked out in the second round and you don't have anything to talk about. This is, I know how thrilling it is for everybody else, and to think that I was along for that ride is definitely pretty exciting.